This is Fearless Rebel Radio, a podcast about body positivity, self-worth, anti-dieting, and feminism. I am your host, Summer Inanen, a professionally trained coach specializing in body image, self-worth, and confidence, and the best-selling author of Body Image Remix. If you're ready to break free of societal standards and stop living behind the number on your scale, then you have come to the right place. Welcome to the show. This is episode 89, and I am interviewing Krystal Thompson about how the body positive movement can be more inclusive, what it means to practice body positive yoga, how it can help you heal your body image, and details on our upcoming virtual workshop, the Self-Care Shakedown. The Self-Care Shakedown is a 90-minute workshop blending yoga and coaching to help you feel a little more awesome in your body, and we give you lots of details about what that is all about later in the show. You can find all the links and resources mentioned in this podcast at summerinnanen.com/89. That's 89. Before we begin, I just want to remind you to please leave a review for this podcast if you haven't already done so. Leaving a review helps others to find the show and the information that you're learning here. I've been so grateful for all of the new listeners and subscribers and all of the new reviews. Please do keep them coming because they help others to find this show. You can do that by heading to iTunes, searching for Fearless Rebel Radio, and clicking rating and reviews, and then click to leave a review or give it a rating. Or you can go to summerinnanen.com/FRR to the Fearless Rebel Radio homepage, and there's a direct link there. Second, if you haven't already done so, you can get the free 10-day body confidence makeover at summerinnanen.com/freebies with 10 steps to take right now to feel better in your body. And if you can't wait until the end of this episode to hear about the Self-Care Shakedown, just go to selfcareshakedown.com. All the fun is going to be happening on Tuesday, May 23rd. And if you can't make that date live, you will get a recording. It's awesome. We did one back in January and it was incredible. So that's why we are doing another one for the spring, and it would make a really good present for Mother's Day for yourself or for your mom. Today's guest is Krystal Thompson. Krystal is a professional yoga therapist and intersectional body positivity activist. Krystal's work focuses on helping people to be in good relationships with their body while recognizing that there are systems of oppression working to undermine feelings of self-love and worthiness. Her work rests on the belief that all humans are worthy of love and respect, and as we do the work to feel better about ourselves and to better love and respect ourselves, we are able to offer more love and respect to the world. As we are healed, so is our world. Krystal's message is, now is the time to step into your own power, for we must. I want to help you step into your power. The world needs you. Krystal is a settler Canadian currently living and working on the traditional unceded lands of the Yellowknives Dene on Chief Dry Geese territory. Krystal is awesome. She's been a colleague and friend of mine for a while, and I'm super pumped to have her here today. I think you're going to learn a lot and love her perspective. So let's get started with this show. Hi, Krystal. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Summer. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here. We've collaborated on the Self-Care Shakedown, and we're going to be running another one of those, but you haven't been on the podcast before, and it was like, now is the time to have you on the podcast.
Yes, and I'm so happy to be here. Yep.
Yeah, so I'd love you to tell our listeners how you got into this line of work and how you got into body positivity.
So I was somebody who was bigger bodied from a really young age. One of my first diet when I was like 10. Well, I had a doctor put me on a diet when I was 10. And, just like went for, 20 years, just 25 years, just trying to fix and change my body, and really believed like, of course I should, to be healthier, and I wouldn't want to be unhealthy. And if I've ever have health problems, it must be related to my weight. And so went on that journey. And then I, it wasn't really, body positivity wasn't really out there in the world. Like that term, I hadn't really heard it. But what happened was I had Louise Hay in my head telling me the only diet one should ever go on is a diet from negative self-talk. I was like, that's a pretty radical thing. So that's really like, that really got me started. And I'd been like doing all these restrictive diets to try to heal myself and working out with a personal trainer. And, and then it was like one of those like bottom moments where I like crashed hard, because after a year of like super restricting my life, making my life like super small. You know how it's like there's that beautiful metaphor of like we're trying to make ourselves smaller, and as we do, it's like our lives also collapse in on themselves because we can no longer go out and be social. And like for me, it was like it was summer and I was wanting to do all these canoe trips, and it's like, how do I make sure I'm still burning enough calories and eating the right foods on all these canoe trips I was going on? Yeah. And so my life just started getting smaller, and it was a year of that. And I had lost 2 pounds at the end, and I was like, fuck this shit.
Yeah.
And I went up to like a river. I like drove my car out to this like river in the middle of nowhere and just like screamed at the river and was like, I am done. And it came from a place of like, real desperation, really.
Mm-hmm.
And really being like, holy, I just can't do this anymore. And it's really not working. And then it was around that time that I decided to become a yoga instructor, and yoga had already been really helping me with mental health generally. And then I did, in preparation for my yoga teacher training, I was practicing yoga every single day for over a year. And I just saw, without trying, this shift happen in my brain that I was like, oh, maybe I'm more than just the way my body looks. Mm-hmm. And like maybe my body is more than the way it looks. And like, oh, maybe I can appreciate my body for being the home I get to experience this life in, and for all the amazing things it does for me and all the amazing things it can do, and as opposed to the things it's not doing that I see, or that really that society is putting on me. And so then that's really when I got started in that kind of movement, although I didn't see it as a movement back then. And then it was like, I went to, really what helped was like reading intuitive eating and going to Jess Baker's, the first Body Love conference that she had in Tucson in 2014.
Oh, nice.
And meeting all these amazing people there, like Sonia Renee Taylor and the world famous Bob, and and then started really getting into body positivity and fat acceptance and healthy at every size and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, because you mentioned at the beginning that you had this belief that health and weight were intertwined. Yeah. And my question was going to be, what have you learned about that?
Yeah. That's bullshit.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Bottom line.
Yeah, totally. And like, again, there's a lot of the system of capitalism and, systems of oppression that want us to believe that too. And I think people are making a lot of money off of that. And so, why would they want a different message to get out there?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. And so you mentioned that when you discovered yoga, that shift happened in your brain. Now, did you have a really good instructor that was teaching you self-compassion and mindfulness from a place of self-love, or did you do this on your own? I'm curious, because diet culture is really in bed with yoga culture in a lot of places.
Oh my God. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And like today, this Krystal, like whenever I think about going into a yoga environment, I'm always like, oh God, do I really, I don't know if I fit in. Like I really don't feel like I do, because there's so much like, eat kale, you're good now. Mm-hmm. Like there's like, it's so prevalent. Like I just went to a yoga conference in February, and it's really hard to feel like I still fit in that community. And absolutely. I feel like yoga is so intertwined with this like health. One, like yoga is healthy. Thinness is healthy. Eating a certain diet is what is healthy. And then also that like health is the key, to happiness. And, like if you are struggling with health, that's a problem. Like I just also think unlinking these concepts of health and happiness too is like another thing that's really out there, that, some of us have chronic illness that we're working with for the rest of our lives. Does that mean that we need to stop like that? those things can't go together. We can't be happy still. Like I don't want that to be linked.
Right. And it's also, I think it's also a very ableist perspective to wish health and happiness. Like you hear a lot, well, as long as she's happy and healthy. And you see that a lot in the body positive sphere too. Like when a larger body is shown, you know, a lot of times the reaction is, well, as long as she's healthy and happy, like that's a requirement. And for one, you know, health and happiness, your health does not dictate your worth. Exactly. And happiness is not always a choice, or is it a constant? And it's very ableist to think that as well.
Exactly. And like at that talk I did recently, I kind of brought that up too. So if we were to say when people are like, oh, okay, but if that fat person's cholesterol is still good, and like this kind of came up with Tess Holiday recently, where she had the taxi cab driver like shaming her and questioning her about her health. Well, what if her cholesterol is high? You know, like, and it's like, does she deserve to love her body any less? Is she worthy of less respect? Would you say that to a cancer patient? Like, because they have cancer, their body is less worthy of love and respect? Like, we create these things that I don't think that that's the way that I want the world to be.
Yeah. What would you like to see?
I really want to like approach the world from a place of all beings are worthy of love and respect. Mm-hmm. And that's a fundamental, foundational, intrinsic quality that's where we're starting from. And I know, you know, like there are systems of oppression that are very invested in that not being the case. And there's many people who are, you know, benefiting from those systems of oppression and us not feeling worthy or good enough as we are. And so I think we got to fight hard, and we're pushing against the status quo. And whenever we're pushing against the status quo, that's a lot of work.
Yes.
It's good work. I think it's still good work. I think there might be a lot of work, but I just don't see any other choice. Especially if you have a belief that humans and beings are worthy of love and respect as they are, they don't have to prove or do or behave in a certain way or look a certain way for love and respect, then how could you not fight for these things?
Exactly. Yeah. And you mentioned like there's many systems of oppression benefiting. Like, can you just give your perspective on how, like what the benefits are? Like, how do people benefit from this?
Oh, well, the like $1 billion beauty industry and the $1 billion diet industry is like really big one. Or like, and like, I mean, I was even thinking about this before we got on our call. Like, so we have body positivity really becoming more part of the mainstream now. And then of course there's this like opportunity, and I don't mean that in a good way, for it to be co-opted and for it to be tainted and for it to be used for capitalism and consumerism. So we have the Weight Watchers, you know, magazine cover that's linking, you know, self-love, yes, self-love, and like a body positive concept with your after body, you know, after weight loss body. And like, I think that there's going to always, there's the status quo pushing back. Mm-hmm. You know, here comes up body positivity asking for the world to be different and saying, basically being like, nobody needs Weight Watchers. Mm-hmm. And then Weight Watchers is going to come in and be like, okay, how can we take that message of asking for something different from the status quo and co-opt it for our own purposes? Yeah. So, I mean, that's another way that I think, unfortunately, the powers that be can try to taint things to be for their own benefit too, like when something good comes along.
Absolutely. And I think the day that Weight Watchers claims themselves feminist, I think I'm going to have to go to the river with you and and just not come back. I don't think they've claimed that for themselves yet, but I feel like it's coming at some point.
Really. Oh God. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that that's super prevalent in yoga culture. So I'd love to hear you talk about why body positive yoga is so needed.
Well, first of all, for me, when I was practicing yoga all the time, I was like, oh, I kind of want to go on yoga teacher training just to deepen my own practice of yoga. And because of our culture around what does a yogi look like, I firmly believed I could not. I could not become a yoga instructor because of the size of my body. And didn't matter that I was practicing yoga all the time. Didn't matter that I was reading the Yoga Sutras or studying the Bhagavad Gita. Like, that didn't matter, which is fucked up, you know?
Yes.
But those things didn't matter. It mattered that I needed to lose weight. And I actually said that to my yoga instructor at the time. I was like, I'm interested in going on yoga teacher training, but I was in that phase where I was like apologetic almost for my body size, but I know I need to lose weight so that she can't say it before, you know. So I'm acknowledging my fatness, just in case you didn't think that I saw how fat I am and that I don't look like a yoga body. I'm going to make sure that you know that I know I'm fat and I'm not a yoga body. And so, you know, of course, she was really great and was like, that's not a thing. And was like, I think that you'd be a great instructor. And also, you know, she did a great job. And I don't think she maybe consciously was thinking about this, but, you know, that's also Western culture and Western culture around yoga. So she was like, here's a picture of Geeta Iyengar, a brown, full-bodied woman, and also one of the, you know, highest, most respected yogis in the world.
Mm.
She is a larger, rounder, you know, brown woman. Like,
wow.
Not the thin, able-bodied, you know, white, affluent woman on the cover of Yoga Journal. And that's really what I saw back then. And I think that is still the case. I know Yoga Journal also tried to do some body positivity and body love work and bring that into their work. And I don't think that they did that very well either, because again, what is selling and who's buying ad space in their magazine, and what are they trying to sell with that magazine? So yeah, now I've lost track of the question.
Yeah, well, I think what I'd love to circle back. Well, it was great because I feel like it was really important to especially bring up the topic of yoga bodies and that being really a westernized version of what yoga is and how that's disconnected from the roots of what it really is.
Yeah.
But I'd love you to explain what body positive yoga is.
For me, body positive yoga is a yoga practice that works to be as inclusive as possible and also is as anti-oppressive as possible. Mm-hmm. So for me, body positive yoga includes like being aware of languaging in a yoga practice, being aware of knowing as many modifications as possible. And like my belief that I rest on is that every body is capable of experiencing the benefits of yoga. And if you're breathing, you can do yoga. Like mm-hmm. that is all being alive. You can do yoga. And that there's always a modification for a pose so that everybody can experience those benefits too. If we're talking about the asanas, which again, our Western culture is so focused on asana and yoga is more than asana. And then, so that's once people are in the space. But before even people come into a space, a yoga space, I think it's really important for people to feel comfortable to even come in. And when I think about what is the goal of yoga, I think that yoga, for me, I want yoga to help heal the world. I want yoga to be a tool. And I think that that's the gift that yoga is. Yoga was offered to the West as a form of healing and has been, modified to a thing of consumerism and maintaining the status quo. But yoga is a way of working on ourselves and working on healing. And so for healing to happen, I really believe that you need to feel safe. And so with these systems of oppression, they do not create safe spaces. And so I think a part of body positivity and part of body positive yoga is making sure that the spaces feel as safe as possible so that people know that this is an LGBTQ plus safe space, two-spirit safe space, that this is a space that seeks to be as anti-racist as possible, a space that is feminist as possible, a space that is working to decolonize yoga, decolonize the North America, supporting indigenous cultures, that also like even that you're not holding on to yoga as yours, that you really see yoga as something that is passing through you as the gift that comes from an Indian tradition, and honoring that and being really aware of that. And what are you doing where does it creep in your practice that you want to hold on and do it as yours and take it on and instead allow things to kind of just pass through you. But yeah, hopefully that.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And I know one of the things that you do is, because you live in the Northwest Territories, which for a lot of people listening, they may not have had that geography lesson. It's one of the territories of Canada. It's up top. And you bless the land, don't you? Or you recognize like the land and well, I'll let you explain it because I think I read on your website that that's what you do, but you're going to explain it better than me.
One of the ways in which I try to uphold my value of decolonization and indigenization is to recognize that I'm a settler Canadian and that I get to live and work on the traditional unceded lands of the Yellowknives Dene and its Chief Dragi's territory, and it's unceded Treaty 8 territory. So whenever I'm traveling, I take some time to say that this is where I'm from. Sambake is the name of the community I'm from in the local language. And I really like to take a moment and really think about this, that I'm a visitor on this land and that it's a real honor to get to live and work here. It's such a beautiful land. It provides for us in so many ways, and to see it in that way that, I'm here, these lands are unceded lands, and I'm a visitor on this land. And so I want to do my best to honor that and recognize that. So when I'm traveling, I always take some time to figure out, sometimes we don't know whose land we are visiting, and take some time to figure out whose land are you on, and take some time to acknowledge and honor that too.
Mm-hmm. It's so beautiful. And I think that you're such a trailblazer in that way. I mean, I don't think I've ever been to a yoga class where they talked about inclusivity at all or recognized, the land or anything like that. So I think you're doing such wonderful work.
And I think it's becoming more and more prevalent. For example, when I was at that yoga conference back in February, there was a class where the instructor didn't recognize the land that we were on at first. And then somebody stood up to say, hey, it'd be really great if you could recognize the land we're on. And I think that yoga instructor was not familiar with that practice. Mm-hmm. So was like, would you like to lead us? Which is like, good. Recognize where you're at in terms of your own education. Yeah. And then educate yourself. But so allowed this person to share that. And then that person also, took some time to say, and I see here in this room other people who are indigenous to this land, and like I honored those people who are actually indigenous to the land in the space as well. And I think that was really cool to see that starting to happen. And just when I was at the Juno Awards at the end of or beginning of April, when the band July Talk won, and now I don't know if any of them are Indigenous, but they were winning outside of the Indigenous category too. And they took some time at the beginning of their acceptance speech to say, we want to honor the land that we're on right now and the Indigenous people of this land. So I feel like it's coming. And I see like it just becoming more and more prevalent in our culture to that. And I love it. And I'm so happy. And I think that reconciliation and decolonization is going to be one of the big things that this generation and the generations to come are going to be really working on healing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's wonderful. And for those of you listening, the Juno Awards are like the Canadian version of the Grammys.
Yes.
and your partner won.
Yes. Yeah, my partner won Best Indigenous Album of the Year.
Yeah. What's the name? So I'm going to link it in the show notes.
Yeah, for sure. The name of the band is Quantum Tangle, and
Okay.
they are incredible. They blend Inuit throat singing and Indigenous storytelling and Métis roots and blues all together.
That's awesome.
It's incredible. It's extremely unique and incredible. And if you want something, a place to even start with looking at decolonization and indigenization, Quantum Tangle is a great place to start because they speak to ideas of having a blended background and indigeneity and what does that mean for this generation. And yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for that. Yeah. I was so pumped for you when you guys want, well, not like you, but I mean sort of you indirectly, right?
I also often say we want a Juno.
Yeah, you did.
It's very close to my heart, and like I like to support their work as much as I can. So, yeah.
So exciting. That's fantastic.
And walk the red carpet. As both me and my partner are both bigger body people too, and my partner is trans. And so like just having trans representation, bigger body representation, Indigenous representation, I think that all those, like we were talking about with yoga, linking it back to like, why is it important that there's body positive yoga? It's, representation matters and being seen matters. And it matters to be able to see yourself in people who are doing the kinds of things that you hope for your own life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. So good. So let's talk about representation and inclusivity, because I know that you feel very strongly about really coming to the core of what body positivity is all about, which is just all bodies being worthy of love and respect. But I know you've mentioned to me before that you've noticed how the body positive movement has been exclusionary to certain individuals. And I'd love you to talk about what you've noticed.
Well, I mean, being somebody who's queer and being somebody who's in a relationship with a trans person, kind of gives me that gift to be able to see those things a little bit of how different communities, especially those communities, are kind of left out of the conversation. And then the amazing Sam Dillon Finch wrote such great articles about their article was called I Need Body Positivity Too. And I really believe that. And I think about, if I can reference conversations that have happened even in your group and other conversations I've seen in body positivity groups. There's this idea that body positivity's roots being in fat activism and eating disorders. There's like this idea of not wanting to dilute the message. Mm-hmm. And I, like we've talked about already in this, our chat now, I think that's really important. Like, we don't want Weight Watchers stepping in and diluting the message and co-opting it and making more money off of it. And it's just the status quo all over again. Like, that's not what we want. But I also think that it's really important I don't think that body positivity, just like the Black Lives Matter movement, isn't for all people. It's not for all bodies. It's Black Lives Matter is not all. It's not all lives matter. Mm-hmm. But what I would parallel it to is white feminism versus intersectional feminism. The Black Lives Matter movement is not all lives matter, but it is Black Lives Matter, including the Black trans person, the Black fat person, including the Black, poor person. Like, these issues they intersect. And I think it's important to recognize all marginalized groups when we're working on elevating a marginalized groups, just in the same way that white feminism can often exclude the intersection of other forms of oppression, for people of color and women of color. So that's really what I'm thinking about when it comes to body positivity and intersectionality and inclusivity. And there's these, really, helpful and I think phrases that were very helpful for body positivity in its earlier stages of change the world, not your body. Mm-hmm. All bodies are good bodies. And I think that those things were really helpful, and they're really helpful for some people. But when we are wanting to be inclusive, if we have that as our value, and I know I do, that I'm willing to let go of a phrase that, I felt was helpful for me if it harms other individuals that I want to uplift, right? If I believe that all bodies are deserving of love and respect, then I don't want to hold on to this phrase and try to guard and protect it just because it helped me. I feel like I can find other ways of celebrating body positivity that aren't going to harm people who are already being marginalized. So I think it's important to be aware of languaging and aware of what we're doing in the body positivity movement that's not including other groups.
Can you elaborate? Because I'm totally able to read through your lines, but just what is it about the phrase "change the world, not your body," and "all bodies are good bodies" that's exclusionary? Yeah.
So for somebody who has gender dysphoria, for them, changing the world isn't necessarily going to help them. So like, for example, for my partner, say the world was like, got to this place where it was like, trans is awesome. And yeah, we acknowledge gender dysphoria and we having top surgery or going on hormone therapy, like all these things were really widely accepted. That wouldn't mean that my partner then would be like, cool, like I don't need to do the things I need to do I don't need to do those things that are changing my body to feel good. My partner would still need to do that. Mm-hmm. It would still need to be on testosterone. They would still need to have had top surgery. Like they would still need to have had these things to feel good about their bodies because truly the body on the outside was not matching what was on the inside. Mm-hmm. And so change the world, not your body, that just doesn't work. And when I think one of the big things too is when we say that, then it's like, kind of almost condoning the idea of like, you just need to think harder, or we just need to get you some better therapy so that you don't feel like you need to, change your body. Like, or gender dysphoria is not a thing that really exists and we don't need to really do anything about it. You just need to fix what's going on in your brain. Mm-hmm. And that just is not a reality. That is not a possibility.
Yeah.
For many trans people. And I know when we lump together this idea of trans individuals and the trans community, but it's an extremely diverse community too. So there's not going to be one answer. Like my partner's belief around that might be different from another trans person's belief around it. But in general, I think the trans community is like this idea of all bodies being good bodies. Like it's so easy to take that and say all bodies deserve love and respect. Mm-hmm. It's so easy to just say that instead of all bodies are good bodies.
Yeah.
And instead of change the world, instead of
change the world, not your body.
Instead of that, we can, be like dismantle systems of oppression.
Right.
Let's dismantle systems of oppression for all people.
Yeah.
Same as saying change the world, dismantle the systems of oppression for all people, for all bodies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, I've certainly said all bodies are good bodies. I think it's definitely in my book. It's definitely in the podcast episode that I did on body positivity. So, for me, it was just a blind spot, I really saw it through the lens of weight, and of course, my intention in saying that statement is all bodies are worthy of love and respect. And I'm pretty sure that is elaborated every time I say that. But yeah, it's just to be mindful of that, like something that I was blind to because no one had ever said it or I hadn't explored it from the perspective of a trans individual. So I think it's really important to, have these conversations so that we can all do better.
And I think that's like that's the privilege, right? Like that's where we get blind spots when we have a certain privilege, so we don't experience that form of oppression. And so it's easy to be blind to those things. Mm-hmm. And I think that doesn't make us bad people. And I don't think feeling guilt serves, around any of that serves anybody. And I think that one of the greatest things a friend said to me too was like, lean into that discomfort, that it shouldn't feel comfortable, that we should be constantly learning, and that we're here, we all show up with privilege of some kind, and and we're all working to like peel back those layers of blindness. And as we learn better, we do better. And I think that doesn't mean we don't take an active role in trying to understand, what am I blind to? Like, it's not like you just wait for those things to kind of show up in your life. You do the work. You reach out to the communities that you're not a part of to try and understand their perspective. I think that that's also, that's also part of the work. And we want to be right. We want to be good, especially if we're people who are we believe in human rights and we are trying to work for those human rights. That it's hard sometimes to hear like we've done something that didn't fit with our fundamental beliefs. But I think it's like this idea of trying to like let go of the ego and being open to learning more, being open to not being right, being open to doing better. And if we can stay in this very humble place of listening and doing better, I think it'll serve that purpose of all bodies feeling like they really do deserve love and respect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you said that so well. So I appreciate you talking to it from that point and saying to just be humbled and be open, because that's how change happens.
Yeah. I have a lot of amazing teachers around me. I really do. I have a lot of amazing teachers around me that I learn from every day. And I am so grateful for those teachers because, I am not perfect. I am still learning, and just happy to still be here doing learning.
Yeah, well, because the last thing you want to do is like feel bad about something and then leave or be like, well, I can't be a part of this movement. Like, come on, that's super, I mean, that's just your ego talking.
Yeah.
And I don't think that does anyone good. I mean, of course, this is for everybody, but it's just learning to navigate it in ways that are more inclusive when you haven't been exposed to some of these perspectives before, which I don't think, a lot of people with privilege like myself, I'll speak for myself, I haven't, it's been a process of like reaching out and having people, like yourself on the show and just talking to other individuals to learn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think that is how we do it. And like, what a gift that we get to have people who've had totally different experiences than us share that experience. I think that's part of like the beauty of, getting to have this human experience.
Yeah, exactly. So what do you think needs to change, or what else do you think needs to change to make body positivity more inclusive?
Well, I think big pieces that are missing are around decolonization and Indigenous rights. I think that I really would like to see that brought more into body positivity. Trans inclusivity, I think, would be also really great in the body positivity movement. And then, the body is not an apology. I don't know if you know that organization, Sonia Renee Taylor. She used that term body terrorism. And like, I've been thinking about that one a lot too, that's kind of like intersects with all these forms of oppression, and that we want to I think it's racism is a body positivity aspect, and is a body positivity issue. And I think that, colonization is a body positivity issue, because if the fundamental belief is that, that every human is deserving of love and respect, then those things like, the history of racism and the history of colonization were really, really anti-body positivity.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that there's even more work to be done in terms of acknowledging those things, but not just that, like uplifting, celebrating, creating space for it, and not trying to being really aware of not trying to recolonize, So, we have, right now in the Northwest Territories, definitely there's and Nunavut, there's like a resurgence of Inuit tattooing, and there's a big project of women going into the communities and starting to do traditional Inuit tattooing for women.
Okay.
And like the fear is that, a person who's not Inuit might come along and be like, oh, that's cool, I'll take that. When they're not taking with it that whole history of oppression, that whole history of colonization. And so as we uplift Indigenous practices, as we uplift the Indigenous community, which I think is definitely a part of decolonization, not being really mindful of not recolonizing, and I mean, that whole history is there in yoga as well. Yoga has so much more to offer than what the West kind of cherry picks as the things to put up as what is yoga, because we are a very visual society. We're a capitalist society, very focused on this thinness and health. And so that is what is made as yoga. And that is not what is yoga. And I think decolonizing yoga too is a really important practice in the body positive yoga practice as well.
Mm-hmm. So just quickly, what's the disconnect with yoga? Like what philosophies within yoga are not being upheld, or which ones do you want to see upheld more frequently or in the mainstream, or which ones should people watch out for?
Well, I think coming back to the yogic philosophy, like yoga translates into English as union, and it is the bringing together. It is the desegregation, and that is the fundamental practice of yoga. So how beautifully does that fit with this idea of intersectional body positivity, right? Mm-hmm. So I see that there's many things around the system of philosophy, the practice of being in this present moment, the practice of going inward, the practice of self-study. A lot of these things don't fit with this idea of capitalism, right? Mm-hmm. How do you sell being happy with what you have in capitalism? You can't. How do you sell being in this present moment and practicing gratitude for everything you have in this present moment? It can be co-opted into capitalism and selling things, but if you maintain it in its pure form, like, it doesn't fit. So I think that those things haven't really been brought into like the yoga mainstream as much, unless they're brought in a way, usually as a way of use yoga so you can be more productive at your job, Use yoga so that, like, one of the things that I'm just going to go on another rant, is that there's a lot of like demonizing of people for being very sedentary, and demonizing people for not moving their body enough so that they don't have back pain. So like, I work as a yoga therapist, right? And so I work with a lot of people with back pain and different issues that are brought about by habitual forms of movement or non-movement that we have in our society. But there's often this like shaming about that to our population, as opposed to like acknowledging that it's a system of oppression that usually is causing that. Like, the reason that people sit all day at a desk with their, hips at a 90-degree angle, causing that kink in their artery that is, that sitting is the new smoking came from that study of how the blood flow is going through the artery at your hip joint at a 90-degree angle, increasing plaque in that artery. And then that was leading towards more heart disease. So that study was done, and then that sitting is the new smoking came out of it. Well, why are people sitting so much? They're sitting because they feel like they have to sit at a desk to be able to make money, to be able to live.
Yeah.
Right. And they feel that pressure. And there's so much. Another thing I really want to unlink is this idea of productivity being linked to our self-worth. And that is very much there in our culture as a form of capitalism. And then it leads directly into my work as a yoga therapist, that, people can feel really bad that, I guess I don't move my body enough. I don't do enough to, like, my back hurts, so I must not be doing enough. Well, it's not just that it's also that there's a system of oppression that is leading into this place, you're serving someone else is being uplifted as you sit at your desk for 8 hours a day.
Yes. And I could go on and on about productivity and self-worth, because I talk about that in my, like, with clients and stuff a lot. It's such a big thing as well. But I feel like this is a perfect segue into our self-care shakedown.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yes. The shakedown.
So this is a co-workshop with Krystal and myself, and it's a 90-minute workshop blending yoga and coaching to help you feel a little more awesome in your body. And we ran one of these workshops back in January or February, maybe? January. Wow. And it was amazing. People had a fantastic time. So we're doing it again, and it's going to be happening Tuesday, May 23rd at 12 p.m. Pacific. And if that conflicts with your schedule, you get a recording so you can do it afterwards. And so this is for people who always feel like they're putting themselves at the bottom of their to-do list, meaning they never actually do anything for themselves. This is for people who feel like their current state of self-care is just crashing into bed exhausted and never making time for themselves. This is for people who would love to practice yoga but don't feel like it's accessible to them, don't feel like they can afford it, or don't have time. And for people who want to find some movement and a way to incorporate things that are going to really nourish them into their life without it feeling like punishment. So that's why if you're like, hey, that sounds like me, then the Self-Care Shakedown is for you. And I'll just tell everybody a little bit about what it is. It's 90 minutes, and what we do is Krystal will take you through a 30-minute body love yoga sequence. Do you want to explain that?
Well, just to say that, again, if you feel like yoga is not for you, then like come see me. Because that is really my mission, as you've heard from this talk, and that we will work with you beforehand too. Like, so if there's specific issues going on in your body that you're like, oh, I don't know if I'd be able to do that practice. If I know who's showing up for this practice, I will tailor the practice to your body and make sure that there's always an option for every body that comes to the practice.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. And it's focused really on just being more compassionate to yourself. And because you get the recording, you'll be able to repeat it anytime, which is also awesome. And then it's followed by a 30-minute self-care for self-love tutorial by myself. And I walk you through how to reframe self-care so that it feels easy and selfless and effortless. And so that you walk away with a personalized self-care plan. So you get a workbook as well. And then we have some Q&A time at the end where you can ask us anything and get personalized advice. And what makes it so awesome is that everyone who came before said it was awesome. That's what makes it so awesome.
Well, I was going to say too, I think what really makes the Self-Care Shakedown unique and special is that it truly is like a shakedown. Self-care gets put out there as a buzzword for, again, like practice self-care so you can still be that productive human that you are. And I think that both Summer and I's approach to self-care is very, very unique to you and kind of gets away from this idea of self-care is like bubble baths and this and this. It's very much like a tailored for you system that Summer shares. And like, I think, being somebody who it was, some of my clients who knew me from before were on our first Self-Care Shakedown. They were like, yes, like, really into that aspect of the approach to self-care, that it's not like what a lot of people are selling out there as self-care. Mm-hmm. And it's very tailored and unique and isn't just this like cookie cutter version of what is self-care, just in the same way the body, like, and that's why it works so well together. Our body positive yoga practice is also totally tailored for you and your body. And I think that's what makes this so unique. The Self-Care Shakedown. And that's why we called it the Self-Care Shakedown. We're not doing things as they've been done, previously. It's not going to be your average self-care workshop. This is really, I think it's really something special.
Thank you. And I would say that your yoga practice was so nourishing and relaxing. And I love your listening to your voice when you're guiding everybody. Like it was just, yeah, I mean, it was like so juicy, if that's, I know that might be
No,
It was.
That is why I called my business The Luscious Life.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
You know.
That's right. Yeah, it was awesome. So Tuesday, May 23rd at 12 p.m. Pacific, but you'll get the recording if you can't show up live. And the price point is super accessible. You can get all the details at selfcareshakedown.com. And this is a virtual event for those of you that were just curious. So it's held in a Zoom conference room. And so you'll see both of us, and you'll be able to follow along with Krystal and myself, and then we open up the chat after so that we can chat with you guys. And if you have questions throughout, then we're moderating that while the other person is presenting as well, so we can help you. And we'd love to see you there. So get the details at selfcareshakedown.com. And
I think an important thing about it too is that it's not just a one-time thing. You have the recording and you can do the yoga practice over and over again, or re-listen to the guidance of Summer and get those gems and revisit those aha moments and gems that come from that.
Perfect.
Too.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, it's so great. That's why we're doing it again. And thank you so much for being here today, Krystal. Yeah, is there anything else you wanted to add before we sign off?
I don't think so, except that I'm really happy to be here with you today, and thank you so much for creating the space for me to get to share these things. And really interested in hearing any feedback anyone has to share. I'd love to hear from people. And yeah, I'm going to be shaking things up in my own world, and I'm really excited about putting that out there into the world a little bit more real, a little bit more raw.
Yeah, that's awesome. Where can people find more of you?
Right now, more people can find more of me at thelusciouslife.ca.
Perfect. And I will link to that in the show notes, which will be at summerinanen.com/89. That's 89. And there'll be a link to the Self-Care Shakedown in there as well. And thank you again so much for being here. You know I love you. So I'm really glad we finally got to do this together.
Me too.
Rock on. Krystal is so great. She is so fierce and passionate, and I love everything that she does. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Remember, you can find all the links mentioned at summerinanen.com/89. And if you liked what you heard, come into the Facebook group and let me know. Tell me what you thought of the episode and what you want more of in future episodes. Thank you again so much for listening, and I will see you next time. Rock on.